work also interfaced with my NATO colleagues and some of my Trans-Pacific colleagues as well in Japan, Australia, and New Zealand.
Can you tell us about the Havana syndrome? I know you are a top expert on that, and it's been in the news again lately. What is the Havana syndrome, first of all?
So in 2016, it came to light that a number of individuals, about 24 individuals, who were working as intelligence and security personnel at the United States Embassy in Havana, Cuba, began to present with a very strange set of neurological signs, objective signs, and subjective symptoms. And this is considered to be what's called a constellation. In other words, the symptoms weren't identical, they weren't uniform across all of these people, but they fit pretty much within sort of a broad set of neurocognitive categories, or a categorical set of presentations. Things like vertigo, I mean, not just dizziness, but profound vertigo, a fullness in the head, pain in the head, disorientation, a whole host of what appeared to be autonomic nervous system dysfunctions, problems with blood pressure, problems with heart rate equilibrium, problems with cognition. I mean, severe problems with cognition, failure to remain vigilant, problems with cognition in terms of focal concentration, inability to not only multitask, but to singularly task, profound fatigue, disorientation. Now, interestingly, these individuals had been, quote, on the job, doing what it is they'd done for years. These were not newbies. These were not individuals who were new to intelligence operations. And so, interestingly, many of them tried to hide those symptoms, or at very, very least, kept them relatively private until they became debilitating. At that time, they were then triaged off island, off Cuba, and they were sent to Miami, Florida, where they were then evaluated and treated by a Navy physician named Dr. Michael Hoffer. And it was only at that time, after they had been cumulatively treated and sort of treated in community, that they began to exchange, if you will, the narratives to then say, wow, this has happened to you too, this happened to me. And it then became apparent, not only to the community at large, but to each and all those affected individuals, that this was more than an individual thing. And the problem was that there was really no smoking gun, so to speak. And there's a lot of things that can produce those signs and those symptoms. I was contacted in late 2016 by members of the Department of State to come on board as a special liaison to work as the senior consulting neuroscientist to be able to engage a process which is called abductive forensics, which is basically, look, we don't have all the pieces, these are the pieces we have, but you also have access to metadata from these individuals, environmental data, architectural data, these individuals' past medical histories and personal histories. What kind of things could cause this? And that process initially took about a year, where my research team and I evaluated those metadata, working together with Dr. Hofer and also working with a colleague of ours from the University of Pittsburgh, Dr. Kerry Balaban. And at that time, the cumulative information that was gained from those patients, those victims, strongly indicated that they had been exposed to something. So the process was, well, what can we rule in as well as rule out? Well, the question then is, well, what things could do this? Well, certain drugs could do it. Various things from the environment, pesticides, chemicals, various toxins from the environment, a number of things. It could be the drugs that they were actually taking, either legitimately or illegitimately, for example, or even that they didn't know that they were being administered by virtue of side effects of local sort of water drainage or water filtration. So we went through the entire gamut of things and ruled a lot of those things out, both circumstantially as well as evidentially, based upon the fact that samples were not found in bodily fluids, samples were not found in their environment. So to make a long story short, the idea was what things could probably do this, and of those probabilistic things, what things were most viable. Based upon that, at that time, in 2017, late 2017, at the end of this assessment evaluation analysis, it was determined these individuals were exposed to some form of energy, either on the job, something that they were doing themselves, or something they were exposed to in their environment. And the circumstances that predicated these individuals developing these signs and symptoms is that they experienced the onset of these signs and symptoms in their private domiciles. All of them were living out on the economy. And this was not happening to them in the office. It was not happening on government property.
So they were home. They were home sleeping. They were home with their families. And
correct.
And were other members of the family, just innocent bystanders, say children and spouses, were they also affected similarly?
In some cases they were. And that became a factor as well. And the pattern of these individuals presenting was not representative of this was something environmental. In other words, it wasn't as if, well, anyone living here would get these things. Nor was it something that we would suggest, well, perhaps it was not just in the natural environment. Could it have been a pesticide? Could it have been something in the actual apartment? No. The pattern was non-representative of that. And we did detailed analysis of what that pattern would be and how it would present. So again, the bottom line up front coming out of those analyses conducted over the span of about 10 months was the highest probabilistic inference is that these individuals were exposed to some kind of energy. And at that time, it was most strongly agreed that the type of energy was primarily some form of sonic energy, ultrasonic energy that may or may not have an acoustic artifact. And some of these individuals heard what they called a sound, a chirping, a ringing, but it was not uniform. And there were some reasons for that. So based upon that, my initial report was that these individuals either had some artifact or some direct interface with some type of ultrasonic energy. Again,